Ta-da!
Hi there, hello.
Hi. Welcome. Wait, let me just close that. How did I press play without having the script open?
No. I'm sad and hurt you don't have it memorized by now.
Well, I mean, I should, but I it's like a safety blanket. I need to have it.
Yeah, no, I have put no effort into memorizing it, so.
And I'll say it different every time. Maybe if I put effort into actually saying it the same.
But that's part of the fun.
Okay. Wait. Hello. And welcome.
So you're doing the start
No,
this time then?
I was waiting to see what you did with that.
Welcome.
You do it.
And hello to the No One Asked You podcast. For this particular series, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, ThatDarnKitteh. Kitty and I are both going into this story completely new with almost no knowledge of the story or world.
Each segment we intend to cover what happens in each new chapter and discuss our experience along the way. This is Mistborn Abridged, a blind read-through, and today we will be covering chapter 9. Chapter 9. It's the first chapter of part 2.
Yes, rebels beneath a sky of ash.
Ash fell from the sky. I'm kidding. That's not how it starts, but yes.
But that is a wonderful callback to the prologue where we wondered.
It is true. We have some answers.
But how did you enjoy this chapter, Kitteh?
I did enjoy this chapter a lot. More cool Alamancy things, so that I enjoyed that bit. But then work on Vin as usual on the characters. Always character work that I'm happy about.
Yeah, we got a little bit of a time jump, so now we get to see a much more confident, more talented Vin, experienced Vin, rather.
Yeah, in terms of Alamancy.
Yes.
Well, yeah, especially she has come a long way as well in other avenues, but Alamancy seems to be her most improved area in this time jump.
Yes, it seems she is exceptionally gifted at the skills. I did have a couple of questions. I'll ask you when we get to those moments.
Okay.
I think some things might have gone over my head, but we'll see when we get there. Anything else to say before we get to the very long epigraph?
Yeah, brace yourself. No, let's get into it.
Very well. In the end, I worry that my arrogance shall destroy us all.
And that's it.
Yep.
That's it. It's actually such an ominous line. It's just one line and that's the end of it. I'm like, oh, okay, let me just sit with that for a while. That's basically what this epigraph did to me. And I was like, okay,
Nice.
I still want to know more. And you?
Yeah, it's just slowly building up the bricks of what seems to have happened and who I suspect the Lord Ruler is.
What could his arrogance be? What's making him arrogant? Or more questions.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to be branding him some sort of heretic, it could be something along the lines of him letting this idea that he's the savior go to his head. It could be that whatever it is that he's going to have to do to stop the deepness may cause some sort of cataclysm. And in the process, he might be like telling all of these various religions, and there's a bit of religious talk later on in this chapter that they have to follow him now, that he has to become a god. This is all in my imagination, by the way, trying to piece together the morsels, the hints that Mr. Sanderson has given us. It could be, and that's like why they say he'll be branded a heretic, because yeah, if he's trying, or if he feels he has to take the place of a god or become a god in order to stop the deepness, he could be doing a necessary thing while being a heretic at the same time. But he's worried about his own arrogance. It's such inner conflict here.
Yeah, we know he's self-aware, and I'm like, okay, he knows he's got arrogance. Cool. My biggest thing that came out of there is like, oh, what are you doing that's arrogant now? Oh, and yeah, it's some choice has. Oh God, I just want to know.
I'm so interested in seeing him in the present timeline. I want to know
Yeah.
who the Lord Ruler is. I want to see someone interact with him at this point and just see how he has changed over the 1,000 years or so.
But if he gives us any indication that it is him, like there is some remnant over these years that remains from the first writings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm almost curious if him living is what's keeping the deepness at bay. What if he didn't actually destroy the deepness
Yeah.
and it's in like a stasis type situation? What if Kelsier and Vin are going to destroy the Lord Ruler and bring about the destruction of the world?
That's a cool turn for it to take. I mean, it's a horrible turn, but it's cool as well. So
I will say my understanding of Brandon Sanderson is that generally he likes to write positive. He's very much not George R.R. Martin. I think he likes it when good things happen to characters and positive growth,
we've
etc.
been
So
we've been traumatized by George R. R. Martin's just relentlessly. Like, I like that person. Oh, they're gonna die, aren't they? Oh, they're gonna die. Like, even you just, it's weird. Like, that there's main characters, but you kind of, I've noticed it since Game of Thrones. You're just like, oh, that one's gonna die because I like them.
is it weird to say that I like the Lord Ruler so far?
Let him
Assuming
go.
that Epigraph Man is.
What do you like about him?
The inner conflict.
Mm,
He seems to
the
want to
depth.
do well, but he's
Mhm.
arrogant, but he's concerned about it. The self-awareness.
Mm,
I think there's a lot to like.
yeah, very human for a god. Haha. Let's see. Yeah, anything else? No.
No, let's get into it. Vin pushed against the coin and threw herself up into the mist. She flew away from earth and stone, soaring through the dark currents of the sky, wind fluttering her cloak.
This is freedom.
She thought, breathing deeply of the cool, damp air. She closed her eyes, feeling the passing wind.
This was what I was always missing, yet never knew it.
She opened her eyes as she began to descend. She waited until the last moment, then flicked a coin. It hit the cobblestones and she pushed against it lightly, slowing her descent. She burned pewter with a flash and hit the ground running, dashing along Felice's quiet streets. The late autumn air was cool, but winters were generally mild in the central dominance. Some years passed without a flake of snow. She tossed a coin backward, then used it to push herself slightly up and to the right. She landed on a low stone wall, barely breaking stride as she ran spryly along the wall's top. Burning pewter enhanced more than muscles. It increased all the body's physical abilities. Keeping pewter at a low burn gave her a sense of balance that any night burglar would have envied. Super quickly, that line about enhancing all of the body's physical abilities, do
Yes.
you think that means enhanced regeneration by any
It
chance?
should. Like, I'm
Because,
hoping that.
because
I'm hoping so.
we never got any sort of line about Kelsier feeling injured or healing after the venture heist.
Yeah,
And we didn't mention it in our last recording session, and we
but it.
learn in this
Mhm.
sort of a spoiler alert for a few paragraphs later. This is 2 months later, so I think my concern that those injuries weren't going to be addressed were well founded,
Yeah.
wasn't addressed. So I'm kind of hoping that these enhanced abilities include the body's natural ability to heal. What do you think?
Yes. And it makes sense that would be it. That if this is a line, that it's all the body's, like, it's supercharging the body, so the body does. Usually, you would heal. It takes a long time. That's the point. The rate at which it heals, maybe that's not as, it's not like Wolverine sort of regeneration, but I do think that can cover the whole Kelsier. Like, not like, I mean, he also slept, so he could have been burning, what's the name? What is it? Pewter. He could have been burning pewter when he got back, taken some pewter and just sat and burnt it, and then that helps his body heal. We'll learn more about it, but I think that is a good enough an explanation. But if that then becomes not the case, we're back to square one without having an explanation, and that means that we'll never get one.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. The wall turned north, and Vin paused at the corner. She fell into a crouch, bare feet and sensitive fingers gripping the chill stone. Her copper on to hide her allomancy, she flared tin to strain her senses. Stillness. Aspens made insubstantial ranks in the mist like emaciated ska standing in their work lines. Estates rolled in the distance, each one walled, manicured, and well guarded. There were far fewer dots of light in this city than there were in Luthadel. Many of the homes were only part-time residencies, their masters away, visiting some other sliver of the final empire. Blue lines suddenly appeared before her, one end of each pointing at her chest, the other disappearing into the mists. Vin immediately jumped to the side, dodging as a pair of coins shot past in the night air, leaving trails in the mist. She flared pewter, landing on the cobbled street beside the wall. Her tin-enhanced ears picked out a scraping sound. Then a dark form shot into the sky, a few blue lines pointing to his coin pouch. Vin dropped a coin and threw herself into the air after her opponent. They soared for a moment, flying over the grounds of some unsuspecting nobleman. Vin's opponent suddenly changed course in the air, jerking toward the mansion. Vin followed, letting go of the coin below her, instead burning iron and pulling on one of the mansion's window latches. So they haven't said it quite yet about the time jump, but we're seeing that she is so much more confident in her use here. And I remember more or less understanding that there was a time jump this far into the chapter, but I had no clue as to how long. We knew that they were giving themselves a 1 year window of opportunity to pull the heist, so it had to have been shorter than that.
Yes.
And I just remember thinking to myself, dying to know, how long has it been?
How did you feel? So you knew it was less than the heist time. So this is the effectiveness of him saying Vin's opponent. It's the dramatic irony, well, not the dramatic irony because you
Yes,
don't know.
he
It's
didn't want to reveal who she was
who it
having
is.
this match
He
with.
played with you. He would like I did suspect it's Kelsey, but
That's what
the
I
fact that
suspected as well.
but you do not know until so it built suspense. This kind of Vin's opponent, and she does say he and whatever, but you still don't know, and you get to
You
you get to experience all of this action, not really
you could
knowing what it is. Yeah.
you could also view it as an insight into her mind. In her
Mm-hmm.
opinion, this person is her opponent for this matter. So this isn't
Yes,
necessarily
I
a
took it
yeah,
necessarily. Yeah.
necessarily a training match. This is in her mind a fight
Mm-hmm.
to win.
Yeah, serves quite a few purposes here because yes, we get that whole suspense thing as a reader, but it does make sense that she would think that way because it is definitely the way she is thinking. So I like that it makes sense in the world, and then also as a writer, it's quite a good thing.
Yes. Her opponent hit first, and she heard a thud as he ran into the side of the building. He was off a second later. A light brightened and a confused head poked out of a window as Vin spun in the air, landing feet first against the mansion. She immediately kicked off of the vertical surface, angling herself lightly and pushing against the same window latch. Glass cracked, and she shot away into the night before gravity could reclaim her. Vin flew through the mists, eyes straining to keep track of her quarry. He shot a couple of coins back at her, but she pushed them away with a dismissive thought. A hazy blue line fell downward, a dropped coin, and her opponent moved to the side again. Vin dropped her own coin and pushed. However, her coin suddenly jerked backward along the ground, the result of a push from her opponent. The sudden move changed the trajectory of Vin's jump, throwing her sideways. She cursed, flicking another coin to the side, using it to push herself back on track. By then, she'd lost her quarry. I'm also going to say that
Hmm.
this is our first Mistborn v. Mistborn fight scene,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
what's cool.
really, yeah, because we've got them moving the coins around strategically for their own purpose, but then her opponent's messing with her coins. That's really neat.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. That was one of my highlights as well, is that we're getting to see what it's like when, like, we've seen Calcia go around and do his Mistborn things, but we haven't seen Mistborn versus Mistborn. So Mistborn using their powers against each other. How does a Mistborn disrupt a Mistborn? That's by pushing their anchors around and all that sort of stuff. It's not just all about them flowing around. You also can think about what your opponent is using and maneuver. I really like this, showing how this works. I enjoyed it. Great action.
We haven't even gotten to the coolest part yet, so let's do it, shall we?
Yes.
Thinks to
Yeah.
herself.
All right.
She thought, hitting the soft ground right inside the wall. She emptied a few coins into her hands and then tossed the mostly full pouch into the air, giving it a strong push in the direction she had seen her quarry disappear. The pouch disappeared into the mists, trailing a faint blue allomantic line. A scattering of coins suddenly shot from the bushes ahead, streaking toward her bag. Vin smiled. Her opponent had assumed that the flying pouch was Vin. He was too far away to see the coins in her hand, just as he had been too far away for her to see the coins he carried. That's cool. That is so
That's
smart.
more also smart on her part, but also in terms of writing, he's showing us without having to go, look, the distance changes, how it changes, like it's showing us the consequences of how this magic system works. Okay, you the further away you are and the less mental there is, then the less visible you are. It's making use of, it's getting us used to the laws of this magic system.
Yes, it's very much like what you have to know the rules before you can
Mhm.
break them. This is the rule. How do I manipulate that rule now to serve me? It's
Exactly.
such a really cool and creative way of thinking, and it works, and it's risky because she's going to run out of her tool if she just does
Yes.
that recklessly. So it's good that she grabbed a few. Obviously, she needs them, and
But
but
she
like
knew, and she thought about all of this. I love the quick thinking. That's what I like about these action sequences, is that he goes through each step, and it is very quick. It is very fast. But what is so cool about the actual Animancer, the person using the magic, is that they are doing this all very quickly and thinking through this all. It's not just about using powers; it's about how they do it. And I love that. That's why I like a magic system like this, because it's
yes,
like how within the bounds of this magic system do they work?
yes. And just my first time reading through it, there was just so much excitement and anticipation.
Yeah,
A dark,
yeah.
yeah, a dark figure jumped out of the bushes, hopping up onto the stone wall. Vin waited quietly as the figure ran along the wall and slipped down onto the other side. Vin launched herself straight up into the air, then threw her handful of coins at the figure passing below. He immediately pushed, sending the coins streaking away, but they were only a distraction. Vin landed on the ground before him, twin glass knives whipping from her sheaths. She lunged, slashing, but her opponent jumped backward.
Something's wrong.
Vin ducked and threw herself to the side as a handful of glittering coins, her coins, the one her opponent had pushed away, shot back down from the sky into her opponent's hand. He turned and sprayed them in her direction. Vin dropped her daggers with a quiet yelp, thrusting her hands forward and pushing on the coins. Immediately, she was thrown backward as her push was matched by her opponent. One of the coins lurched in the air, hanging directly between the two of them. The rest of the coins disappeared into the mists, pushed sideways by conflicting forces. Vin flared her steel as she flew and heard her opponent grunt as he was pushed backward as well. Her opponent hit the wall. Vin slammed into a tree, but she flared pewter and ignored the pain. She used the wood to brace herself, continuing to push. The coin quivered in the air, trapped between the amplified strength of two allomancers. The pressure increased. Vin gritted her teeth, feeling the small aspen bend behind her. Her opponent's pushing was relentless.
Will not be beaten.
Vin thought, flaring both steel and pewter, grunting slightly as she threw the entire force, her strength at the coin. There was a moment of silence. Then Vin lurched backward, the tree cracking with a loud snap in the night air. Vin hit the ground in a tumble, splinters of wood scattering around her. Even tin and pewter weren't enough to keep her mind clear as she rolled across the cobblestones, eventually coming to a dizzy rest. A dark figure approached, mist cloak ribbons billowing around him. Vin lurched to her feet, grasping for knives she'd forgotten that she'd dropped. Kelsier put down his hood and held her knives toward her. One was broken. I know it's instinctual, Vin, but you don't have to put your hands forward when you push, nor do you have to drop what you're holding. I love this, because it's not... Because as talented as she is, as smart and creative as she is, she still has some stuff to learn. There are still flaws to her character. She's not strong women.
Yeah, exactly. It's so nice and realistic because you don't just, even though she has extraordinary, like she's progressed quite a lot, and we do hear that it's actually unusual. She still has like the usual problems that you feel instinctually you have to drop what you're holding and use your hands and whatever. That's a great, and also just writing wise, the diffusion of the tension because it's Calcia now. Very love. I love the way that happened.
Yes,
and it's so Calcia as well. Just like, okay, cool. It's really great. Yeah. And like, and you can see how she goes from, oh, there's so much fear, something's wrong, and you do kind of think you expect it's going to be Calcia, but you're still worried.
You're still living in that. You're not quite sure. You don't know until you've read it, and then you know.
That tension, that release of tension, also just makes it more comedic as well for me.
Yes. Vin grimaced in the darkness, rubbing her shoulders and nodding as she accepted the daggers. Nice job with the pouch. You had me for a moment.
For all the good it did.
You've only been doing this for a few months, Vin. All things considered, your progress is fantastic. I would, however, recommend that you avoid pushing matches with people who weigh more than you, which probably means avoiding them with pretty much everybody. Vin sighed, stretching slightly. She'd have more bruises.
At least they won't be visible.
Now that the bruises Cameron had given her face were finally gone, Sazed had warned her to be careful. Makeup could only cover so much, and she would have to look like a proper young noblewoman if she were going to infiltrate the court. Here, a souvenir. Vin held up the object, the coin they had pushed between them. It was bent and flattened from the pressure. That's cool. I thought that was cool, at least.
I think I thought it was very cool. Just thinking about this coin between them, the way it literally, they folded a coin.
Yes, they did. I'll see you back at the mansion. Vin nodded and Kelsier disappeared into the night.
He's right. I'm smaller, I weigh less, and I have a shorter reach than anyone I'm likely to fight. If I attack someone head on, I'll lose.
The alternative had always been her method anyway, to struggle quietly, to stay unseen. She had to learn to use allomancy the same way. Kelsier kept saying that she was developing amazingly fast as an allomancer. He seemed to think it was his teaching, but Vin felt it was something else. The mists, the night prowling, it all felt right to her. She was not worried about mastering allomancy in time to help Kelsier against enemy Mistborn. It was her other part in the plan that worried her. Sighing, Vin hopped over the wall to search for her coin pouch. Up at the mansion, not Renault's home, but one owned by a different nobleman, lights were on and people milled about. None of them ventured deeply into the night. The Ska would fear mistwraiths. The nobility would have guessed that Mistborn had caused the disturbance. Neither one was something a sane person would want to confront. Vin eventually traced her pouch by steel line to the upper branches of a tree. Steel line. Mm-hmm. That's the first time we've heard those blue lines referred to in that way. I'm assuming, after my tin eye embarrassment, I shouldn't be so quick to assume, but it sounds cool. Steel line.
Steel line, by steel line. We refer to them as steel lines. Cool. Mm-hmm.
She pulled it slightly, tugging it down into her hand, then made her way back out to the street. Kelsier probably would have left the pouch behind. The 24 or so clips it contained wouldn't have been worth his time. However, for most of her life, Vin had scrounged and starved. She simply couldn't force herself to be wasteful. Even tossing coins to jump with made her uncomfortable. So she used her coins sparingly as she traveled back toward Renault's mansion. instead pushing and pulling off of buildings and discarded bits of metal. The half-jumping, half-running gait of a Mistborn came naturally to her now. She didn't have to think much about her movements. How would she fare trying to pretend to be a noblewoman? She couldn't hide her apprehensions, not from herself. Cameron had been good at imitating noblemen because of his self-confidence, and that was one attribute Vin knew she didn't have. Her success with Allomancy only proved that her place was in corners and shadows, not striding around in pretty dresses at courtly balls. Kelsier refused to let her back out. Vin landed in a crouch just outside Mansion Renault, puffing slightly from exertion. She regarded the lights with a slight feeling of unease.
You've got to learn to do this, Vin. So should we hold on? Should you do it in Kelsier's? Should you do it in Kelsier's voice? But it is in my head. In Vin's head.
So clearly we have to do this together then, okay? On three.
Really?
1, 2, 3. You've got
to learn to do this.
This is terrible. One more time. On the 4 count. So 3, then go. 1, 2, 3. You've got to learn to do this. You're a talented allomancer, but you'll need more than steel pushes to succeed against the nobility. Until you can move in their society as easily as you do in the mists, you'll be at a disadvantage. For those of us who just had an aneurysm, these are Kelsier's words in Vin's mind. Although it occurs to me that whenever you've been doing Reen's words, it's been you doing it, not me. So maybe you should just have a crack at do your best
I'll try.
Doing Kelsier impression.
Oh no, I can't. Oh.
3 layers deep. Let's go.
I must try with an American accent. Let's see. This is too bad. God, whatever. This will be entertaining, at least, or cringe. Enjoy. You've got to learn to do. You've got to learn to do this, Vin. You're a talented allomancer, but you'll need more than steel pushes to succeed against the nobility. Until you can move in their society as easily as you do in the mists, you'll be at a disadvantage.
I was transported.
Thanks. Yeah, it was great.
Letting out a quiet sigh, Vin rose from her crouch, then took off her mist cloak and stuffed it away for later retrieval. Then she walked up the steps and into the building. When she asked after Sazed, the mansion servants directed her to the kitchen, so she made her way into the closed-off, hidden section of the mansion that was the servants' quarters. Even these parts of the building were kept immaculately clean. Vin was beginning to understand why Renault made such a convincing imposter. He didn't allow for imperfections. If he maintained his impersonation half as well as he maintained order in his mansion, then Vin doubted anyone would ever discover the ruse.
But he must have some flaw. Back in the meeting 2 months ago, Kelsier said that Renault wouldn't be able to withstand scrutiny by an inquisitor. Perhaps they'd be able to sense something about his emotions, something that gives him away.
It was a small item, but Vin had not forgotten it. Despite Kelsier's words about honesty and trust, he still had his secrets. Everyone did. Sazed was indeed to be found in the kitchens. He stood with a middle-aged servant. She was tall for a Ska woman, though standing next to Sazed made her look diminutive. Vin recognized her as a member of the mansion staff. Kosan was her name. Vin had made an effort to memorize all of the names of the local staff, if only to keep tabs on them. Sazed looked over as Vin entered. "Ah, Mistress Fin, your return is rather timely." He gestured to his companion. "This is Kosan." Kosan studied Vin with a business-like air. Vin longed to return to the mists where people couldn't look at her like that. "It is long enough now, I think," Sazed said.
Oh, I'm doing the woman thing.
Yes.
Another South African appears. Probably. But I cannot perform miracles, Master Vought.
Sazed nodded. Vought was apparently the proper title for a terraceman steward. Not quite Ska, but definitely not nobleman. The terraceman held a strange place in imperial society. Vin studied the two of them suspiciously. "Your hair, mistress," Sazed said with a calm tone. "Kosan is going to cut it for you."
Oh.
Vin said, reaching up. Her hair was getting a bit long for her taste, though somehow she doubted that Sazed was going to let her have it cropped boyishly short. Kosan waved to a chair and Vin reluctantly seated herself. She found it unnerving to sit docilely while someone worked with shears so close to her head, but there was no getting around it. Oh, I feel you, Vin. I feel you.
So we've got Vin, still Vin paranoia around here. So we do have Vin perceptiveness, because did you remember that he can't withstand scrutiny? Renault can't withstand scrutiny by an Inquisitor. That small item, that it was a small item. Vin had not forgotten it.
Yes. Okay, so that was actually one of the things that I was a bit confused about. The phrasing, it was a small item.
It's just something to think about. No, item-wise, that's it. It's not an actual item.
Yeah, it's metaphorical. Like that was a small tidbit of information.
It's a small thing. Yeah, thing literally is maybe would have been a more comfortable word for you.
Yeah, but it's fine.
Yeah, and
I didn't even notice it this time as we're going through it, but just a strange phrase.
Yeah, and what does it make you think about Renault? I'm like, Renew. I'm wondering, what is it that I was curious when that did come up. I was like, what about him is going to be seen by an Inquisitor? What about Inquisitors makes, what can Inquisitors do that can tell? Like, we don't know. There's still mystery about this. Like, maybe Renault is something different, or he's using some power that's different, and an Inquisitor will know. So there's a nice mystery unfolding there, and he's just doing a bit of a callback to it, and also making sure that Vin keeps to Vin's suspicious nature. Vin didn't just turn around and become naive.
So she's still ruminating. She's still trying to figure everything out.
Mm-hmm. And also, just by the way, going back a little bit further, now Vin has Kelsia's voice in her head. We had Jean in her head all the time. Now we have another voice there, which is Kelsia's.
I hope that's good.
Not very well done, but it's there.
I thought Oscar-winning performance.
Oh yeah, thank you.
No,
have your tears dried yet? Are you okay after that emotional?
I really got the you doing me, doing Kelsey, or doing Vin of it.
Yeah,
it was all there. No, it's wonderful to see, because hopefully then the Kelsier voice in her head will do battle with the Reen voice in her head, and the Kelsier voice will win out, I hope.
Yeah, and Kelsier's voice will help her listen to her own voice and value her own voice. So she doesn't just rely on just these other people's voices, but it was the first time we have Kelsier's voice in her head, which I really enjoyed.
I also want to address, parallel is not the right word, but Kelsier giving her the cloak and saying, "This is who you are, Vin," going back several paragraphs earlier to when she thinks it all felt right to her, is just subtly developing her character, and I think her journey into becoming who she could be.
She's totally embraced the mists, and there is that "this is freedom" thing from the beginning. Remember one of the things that when she was thinking about that the ash, she wants to be as free as something like the ash in the air. That's exactly what she started to become. She is free and really embraced the darkness in terms of literally darkness, and she's really come into her own in the mists. But that also entails elsewhere coming into her own, and she's not comfortable with that. She's okay with allomancy. It's like allomancy was what she was always meant to do, but being a person and visible to other people and human has not come easily to her, and she's very uncomfortable with it.
Yes.
Let's do a human thing and have a haircut, and she's still such a trauma victim. Like she can hardly sit still with shears around her head. And now we can have another comparison of, because Reen would cut her hair before. Now it's like, no. Yeah, let's get back to
her life has changed in so many ways. After a few moments of running her hands through Vin's hair, tisking softly, Kosan began to snip.
Such beautiful hair. Thick with a nice deep black color. It's a shame to see it cared for so poorly, Master Vart. Many court women would die for hair like this. It has just enough body to lie full, but it's straight enough to work with easily.
We'll have to see that it receives better care in the future. Kosan continued her work, nodding to herself. Eventually, Sazed walked over and took a seat a few feet in front of Vin.
Kelsier hasn't returned yet, I assume?
Sazed shook his head and Vin sighed. Kelsier didn't think she was practiced enough to go with him on his nightly raids, many of which he went on directly following his training sessions with Vin. During the last 2 months, Kelsier had put in appearances on the properties of a dozen different noble houses, both in Luthadel and in Felice. He varied his disguises and apparent motives, trying to create an air of confusion among the great houses. So there's a lot to discuss there. First off, we know now that it has been 2 months, which is no small amount of time, considering they only have 12 to work with, I assume. For all we know, this world could have 16 months, a year, or what have you, but I don't see a reason not to think it's 12 at the moment. All the same, 8 weeks. I think it's good to know that he has been continuing on with the nightly raids and doing so successfully, but I question the wisdom of doing raids in Felice, if that's where he's hiding and training with Vin.
Yeah.
It seems like that could set up either a dangerous situation for them during training or lead some investigations in the direction of Felice. And there's no mention of him doing it in any other suburb town. It's just Luthadel and Felice. So
yeah, it will be interesting to think about to find out what purpose these Felice raids have served, because we so far with the political intrigue and things like that, we've had a bit more motives shown to us. So if we can get a satisfactory reason for something that Kelsier had done in Felice, then I would be happy. Otherwise, this is just throwing it in.
yes,
because there has to be a reason for it. But we don't find out in this episode in this chapter. Oh
Anyway,
yeah, also varied his disguises. Sorry.
Yes. So
he varied his disguises and apparent motives. Yes.
Yes. So he is trying to get the noble houses to blame each other. So the plans are coming along. They're making progress.
What did you think about disguises? I'm wait, Mistborn all wear mist cloaks. What did he do else in other ways to make himself?
Well, he doesn't have to use all of the Mistborn abilities. He could pretend to be a misting from House Venture, so to speak.
Yeah, he varied his disguises and apparent motives. I want to know how he did that. I want examples, but I like not knowing yet.
Yeah. And for the moment, I'm just assuming he's dressing up as one great house or another in order to create suspicions. That was what I was thinking.
Leaving certain things behind, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben asks, what?
Eyeing Sazed, who was regarding her with a curious look. The terraceman nodded his head slightly with respect. I was wondering if you might be willing to listen to another proposal. Vin sighed, rolling her eyes.
Fine. It isn't like I can do anything else but sit here.
She thinks to herself. She says fine, but she thinks the snarky response to herself. I think I have the perfect religion for you, Sazed said, his normally stoic face revealing a glimmer of eagerness. It is called Trelagism, after the god Trell. Trell was worshipped by a group known as the Nalazins, people who lived far to the north in their land. The day and night cycle was quite odd. During some months of the year, it was dark for most of the days. During the summer, however, it only grew dark for a few hours at a time. The Nalazins believed that there was beauty in darkness, and that by daylight was more profane. They saw the stars as the 1,000 eyes of Trell watching them. The sun was the single jealous eye of Trell's brother, Nalt. Since Nalt only had one eye, he made it blaze brightly to outshine his brother. However, the Nalazins were not impressed and preferred to worship the quiet Trell who watched over them, even when naught obscured the sky. It's a weird accent I'm doing there. There's there's no rhyme or reason. There's a little German, a little French. I don't know. But Sazed fell silent, thankfully for me. What were you gonna say, Kitty?
It is an interesting. I'm going along with it. I'm like, where is it gonna go now? Hey, it's better than anything I could do. Okay, so I'm enjoying it.
And that's what matters. Vin wasn't sure how to respond, so she didn't say anything. It really is a good religion, Mistress Finn, Sazed said. Very gentle, yet very powerful. The Nalazans were not an advanced people, but they were particularly determined. They mapped the entire night sky, counting and placing every major star. Their way suits you, especially their preference of the night. I can tell you more if you wish. Vin shook her head.
That's all right, Sazed.
Not a good fit, then. Sazed said, frowning slightly. Ah, well, I shall have to consider it some more. Thank you, mistress. You are rather patient with me, I think.
Consider it more. That's the fifth religion you've tried to convert me to. Saz says, how many more can there be?
500 and...
Can we just clarify? Because, you know, I'm sure everybody thought that Robert Jordan. I'm sure everybody thought that Brandon Sanderson said says, but that was just me.
Yes, to be clear.
Go on. Must I redo it?
Wait, did you want to redo the line?
No, it's fine. Let's do it. Go on. Let's keep the
Okay. 562. Or at least that is the number of belief systems I know. There are likely and unfortunately others that have passed from this world without leaving traces for my people to collect.
And you have all of these religions memorized?
As much as is possible. Their prayers, their beliefs, their mythologies, many are quite similar, break-offs or sects of one another.
Even still, how can you remember all of that?
I have methods.
But what's the point?
The answer should be obvious, I think. People are valuable, Mistress Finn, and so therefore are their beliefs. Since the Ascension 1,000 years ago, so many beliefs have disappeared. The Steel Ministry forbids the worship of anyone but the Lord Ruler, and the Inquisitors have diligently destroyed hundreds of religions. If someone doesn't remember them, then they will simply disappear. And let's take a moment to pause here and say that I'm coming to like Sazed.
Oh, I do like him a lot. Even even before this, I like him. Very endearing.
Yes, there's something very sweet and genuine. He's trying to. They had their brief discussion about belief systems, and he's like so eager to share this knowledge with her. And it's this one that he comes up with sounds like it would be a good fit for her.
It does. I think it is a good fit for her, but she just doesn't want to believe in anything, I suppose. And it is kind of weird to be just introduced to something and they're like, pick it. Yeah, cool. This is now my religion. This is everything that I believe in. Like it's quite weird.
Especially if the Lord Ruler's religion has been around for 1,000 years. At the expense of all others, like this idea that there are other religions must be so foreign to her.
And also this idea of, okay, so we do find out a little bit later about what kind of person Sazed is in terms of why he's keeping these histories and whatever. I wonder if this is a terraceman thing, or if there are just certain terracemen that do what he does and keep these things. There's something similar in the Castlevania universe, where basically these mages or whatever, they're also called keepers. I think they're even called keepers, where they keep stories. So it's interesting that somebody who's supposed to be committed, or if this is a terraceman thing, people that are supposed to be like deeply committed to the Lord Ruler are also in the background keeping the old religions. So I was just curious as to where this comes from, if it's a terraceman thing or a Sazed thing.
I suspect that there is a subculture of terracemen, a small group, a secret society, if you will, of terracemen. Hashtag not all terracemen.
You mean you've been trying to get me to believe in religions that have been dead for 1,000 years?
Sazed nodded.
Is everyone involved with Kelsier insane?
The final empire. Vin thought, yes. She's too polite to insult people.
Yeah.
The final empire cannot last forever. I do not know if Master Kelsier will be the one who finally brings its end, but that end will come. And when it does, when this steel ministry no longer holds sway, men will wish to return to the beliefs of their fathers. On that day they will look to the keepers, and on that day we shall return to mankind his forgotten truths.
Keepers?
Vin asked as Kosan moved around to begin snipping at her bangs.
There are more like you.
Not many, but some. Enough to pass the truths on to the next generation.
Exact confirmation that it isn't a terraceman thing, it is a subculture. There you go.
Yes.
Oh, yes, and Keepers, yes, has a capital K, just for anyone wondering, if you didn't catch that.
Yes. Vin sat thoughtfully, resisting the urge to squirm beneath Kosan's ministrations. The woman certainly was taking her time. When Reen had cut Vin's hair, he had been finished after a few quick hacks. Shall we go over your lessons while we wait, Mistress Vin? Vin eyed the terraceman and he smiled slightly. He knew that he had her captive. She couldn't hide or even sit at the window staring out into the mists. All she could do was sit and listen.
Fine.
I like Vin so much. Yeah, I don't have much commentary there other than to say I like her so much.
Well, yeah, no, she's I'm happy to experience her more, not just her being scared and shy. She's got a lot of attitude with Sazed.
Yes. Can you name all the 10 great houses of Luthadel in order of power?
Venture, Hastings, Ilariel, Tequil, Lekal, Ericella, Erikel, Hart, Urbane, and Buvidas.
Good. And you are?
I am the Lady Valette Renew, fourth cousin to Lord Tevin Renew, who owns this mansion. My parents, Lord Hadron and Lady Falit Renew, live in Chakath, a city in the Western Dominance. Major export wool. My family works in trading dyes, specifically blush dip red from the snails that are common there, and Callowfield yellow made from tree bark. As part of a trade agreement with their distant cousin, my parents sent me down here to Luthadel so I can spend some time at court.
And how do you feel about this opportunity?
I'm amazed and a little overwhelmed. People will pay attention to me because they wish to curry favor with Lord Renew. Since I'm not familiar with the ways of court, I will be flattered by their attention. I will ingratiate myself to the court community, but I will stay quiet and out of trouble.
Your memorization skills are admirable, mistress. This humble attendant wonders how much more successful might you be if you dedicated yourself to learning rather than dedicating yourself to avoiding our lessons.
Do all terrorismen, humble attendants, give their masters as much lip as you do?
Snarky Vin! Only successful ones. Vin eyed him for a moment, then sighed.
I'm sorry, Saz. I don't mean to avoid your lessons. The mists. I get distracted sometimes.
Well, fortunately and honestly, you are very quick to learn. However, the people of the court have had their entire lives to study etiquette. Even as a rural noblewoman, there are certain things you would know.
I know. I don't want to stand out.
Oh, you can't avoid that, mistress. A newcomer from a distant part of the empire? Yes, they will notice you. We simply don't want to make them suspicious. You must be considered, then dismissed. If you act too much like a fool, that will be suspect in and of itself.
Great.
She thinks. Sazed cocked his head slightly, then turned his eyes toward the doorway. A few seconds later, Vin heard footsteps in the hall outside. Kelsier sauntered into the room bearing a self-satisfied smile. He pulled off his mist cloak, then paused as he saw Vin. But before...
Mm-hmm.
It's noteworthy that he's much more comfortable wearing the mist cloak in Renault's mansion now, whereas they were careful to avoid being seen with it in the previous chapter. Do you think that's an
Yeah.
inconsistency or not?
No, I think there's enough time for it to have passed, for things to have changed, for maybe it's a different time of night. Yeah, I don't think it's an inconsistency. Do
Okay.
you? You found it inconsistent?
I didn't until I just read it, but
It was the first
nothing
time.
like
Yeah, it was the first time Vin was coming in there as well. It was, the first time he was visiting with her and all of that. It was different circumstances, so I'm okay with there being different. It's different
cool.
enough over here. Yeah.
Cool. Fair. Anyway, please continue.
What?
She asked, sinking a little further into the chair. The haircut looks good. Nice job, Kosan.
It was nothing, Master Calcier.
Vin could hear the blush in her voice.
I just work with what I have. Mirror!
Vin said, holding out her hand. Kosan handed her one. She's now a little bossy. She's snarky.
Yeah,
I like her
sheesh.
so much.
I was like, excuse me, when that happened, I was just mirror. But it's like, yeah, she doesn't bother because it's just so horrific that she's, what the hell do I look like? She doesn't care. She's just mirror.
And it's not like her awkward, I don't want to be seen, so I'm just going to speak as little as possible. It felt like that bossy.
Show me now.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Kosan,
she's going to click just now.
Yeah.
Mirror.
Kosan handed her one. Vin held it up, and what she saw made her breath catch in her throat. She looked like a girl.
Did yours say? Hold on. Did yours say catch in her throat?
Yes. Did I not say that?
No, mine says Vin held it up, and what she saw gave her pause.
Interesting. Mine says Vin held it up, and what she saw made her breath catch in her throat.
Which one do you like more? I like the breath.
I like the breath one too.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Redo.
No. We are highlighting this difference. So for the third time, Kosan handed her one. Vin held it up, and what she saw made her breath catch in her throat. She looked like a girl. Kosan had done a remarkable job of evening out the hair, and she had managed to get rid of the snags. Vin had always found that if her hair got too long, it had a tendency to stand up. Kosan had done something about this too. Vin's hair still wasn't very long. It barely hung down over her ears, but at least it lay flat.
You don't want them to think of you as a girl,
Reen's voice warned, yet for once she found herself wanting to ignore that voice. Yay,
Yay!
Vin!
Do it!
Are we, too quick to cheer that on, though? Because this is a pretty dangerous world. I mean, it's less dangerous for her now that she has some training and what have you, but are we too quick? Is the defense mechanism important?
She doesn't need to become naive, for sure, which I don't think she will. It's just that she needs to be seen as a girl. Now it's more dangerous if she's not seen as a girl. It's more dangerous for her to stand out in the wrong way. So now she has to become flexible in the world, which is a coping mechanism that is very difficult when you've gone into these rigid forms of behavior out of survival. Now you actually need to learn to be a bit more flexible. It's quite interesting psychological work that he's doing here.
Cool. I just I don't want her, as you pointed out, I don't want her to become naive. I want her to have character growth, to be more well-adjusted and what have you. And that's what I feel like I'm cheering on. But if the world is still horrifically dangerous and backstabby, then
I think she's smart enough to find a balance. Well, I'm hoping so. But I think she will have mistakes that any person,
true,
any person with naivety would come across. So that's just even more character development. And no Mary Soon is here, so that's good.
Very much no, and very happy for that. We might actually turn you into a lady, Vin, Kelsier said with a laugh, earning him a glare from Vin. First, we'll have to persuade her not to scowl so often, Master Kelsier. That's going to be hard. She's quite fond of making faces. Anyway, well done, Kosan.
I've still got a bit of trimming to do, Master Kelsier.
By all means, continue. But I'm going to filch Sazed for a moment. Kelsier winked at Vin, smiled at Kosan, then he and Sazed retreated from the room once again, leaving Vin where she couldn't eavesdrop.
Yeah, you see, she still wants to eavesdrop. She's still paranoid in that way. She still wants to know stuff. I mean, she even knew Kosan's name, not because she's a great person and wants to know the servants' names and things. No, she needs to
keep
so that
tabs.
she can keep tabs. so don't worry. I don't think anytime soon she's going to just. I think she'll be naive in other ways, but she'll keep her wits about her. I have faith.
Good. Me too. But it was fun though. It really was tremendous getting to see her be a bit snarky, much more trained.
More confidence in spite of herself.
Yes. And
like she glares at Kelsier, like she doesn't just keep quiet and like meek and whatever. She glared at him. She's like, excuse me. You know, she has reactions. She's allowed herself those things.
Just so much more personality to her now that's coming out. And that was a nice joy. So I really enjoyed this first part of the chapter.
I love her interactions with both Kelsier and Sazed. And it makes it the way that he is, you can see her, like she's not meek or whatever to him, or you can see Sazed likes her as well. And the way he kind of tolerates her snarkiness and finds it funny and amusing is also makes him endearing. So that's why what I meant by character work. It's really nice and warm and fuzzy. I'm scared because I like Sazed and because George R. R. Martin has ruined my life. I'm just like, oh no, Sazed, when's he gonna die?
No, he's too polite and cool for this world.
I love him too much.
But we then get into Kelsier's POV.
Mm-hmm.
Kelsier peeked into the kitchen, watching Vin sit sullenly in her chair. The haircut really was good. However, his compliments had an ulterior motive. He suspected that Vin had spent far too much of her life being told that she was worthless. Perhaps if she had a bit more self-confidence, she wouldn't try to hide so much. That's an important insight, I think, into his aims with her. He's not just training her, he's trying to build her up emotionally as well.
He's not lying to her, because it did look good, but he's making a conscious effort to treat her in a way she has not been treated before, in a way that helps her build confidence. And yes, that is in assistance with the plan, but also it does help her. And I do still think he cares about her. I don't feel like he's using her.
I think it speaks to Kelsier's moral good intuitions here. And I still don't think in the alignment chart, I'm still skeptical about putting him into the chaotic good category because of some of his darker tendencies. But this one aspect certainly feels like it belongs in the good category.
Mm-hmm. The way he goes, his compliments had an ulterior motive. That would, that sort of wording would make Vin spin out of control, but it's like,
yes, it suggests manipulation, but
yes, but it's good. It's like, and the fact that he is aware of his ulterior motive, he's being aware of it. That just demonstrates more good to me. So loving Kelsier.
He let the door slide shut, turning to Sazed. The terraceman waited as always with restful patience. How is the training going? Very well, Master Kelsier. She already knew some things from training she received at her brother's hands. Above that, she is a particularly intelligent girl, perceptive and quick to memorize. I didn't expect such skill from one who grew up in her circumstances. A lot of the street children are clever, the ones who aren't dead. She is... That was funny to you?
It was. She's the ones who aren't dead. Jeez. Like, of course, the ones who aren't dead, you don't survive being stupid.
Yes, reminding us that this is a very dark world.
It's a dangerous world. Yep, dead children is a good reminder. Thanks.
Even with much of Vin's darker thoughts, and even with the prologue chapter, it doesn't feel oppressively dark. It doesn't feel like Westeros. I think it is important for Kelsier to be saying this, for us as reading it, to remind us every so often, no, this is a dark world. It's an easy read. It is a fun read. These are colorful characters that we really like, but no, it is a dark world still.
It's real. Yeah, it's real. Really, it's a struggle, and it's not just Vin being overly traumatized. Everybody that is in that world, every child is in that sort of situation. No one has it easy.
She is extremely reserved, and I sense that she doesn't seize a full value in my lessons. She is obedient, but is quick to exploit mistakes or misunderstandings. If I don't tell her exactly when and where to meet, I often have to search the entire mansion for her. I think it's her way of maintaining a bit of control in her life. Anyway, what I really wanted to know is whether she's ready. I'm not sure, Master Kelsier. Pure knowledge is not the equivalent of skill. I'm not certain if she has the poise to imitate a noblewoman, even a young and inexperienced one. We've done the practice dinners, gone over the conversational etiquette, and memorized gossip. She seems skilled at it all in a controlled situation. She's done well sitting in on tea meetings when Renaud entertains noble guests. However, we won't really be able to tell if she can do this until we put her alone in a party full of aristocrats. I wish she could practice some more. But every week we spend preparing increases the chances that the Ministry will discover our budding army in the caves. It is a test of balance, then. We must wait long enough to gather the men we need, yet move soon enough to avoid discovery. We can't delay for one crew member. We'll have to find someone else to be our mole if Finn does badly. Poor girl. I wish I had time to train her better in allomancy. We've barely covered the first 4 medals. I just don't have enough time.
Pause.
Yes, pause, because I have stuff to say too, but you go first.
No, you go first.
I insist you go first.
Okay, with this, I've compared this to what Vin was thinking. So remember, Vin was like, "Oh, Kelsier seemed to think it was his teaching that made her advance so quickly." That's not what Kelsier is thinking. He does know that she's very quick in learning. It's not.
They have a prodigy.
Yeah, and he wishes he could give her more. It's nothing. He does not have this arrogance that, oh no, look at what I've created in Vin. No, he's like, he is thinking and feeling,
oh,
I wish I could give her more. Poor girl. I'm sorry, I'm asking so much of her. You know, there's that.
But it is in keeping. Yes, which is a really interesting nuance that I'm really excited to have pointed out to me, because that didn't occur to me. But because it is within Kelsier's character, I think, to play it off lightly and sort of pretend that he's responsible for, you know, her excellent skill because he's such a good teacher, but to have these inner thoughts of concern. That's incredible. Thank you.
I do agree. I think he could be playing it off, and that's what gives Vin this idea that he has Vin gets the impression that that's what he thinks, and she's perceptive. She doesn't. Yes, she's a bit paranoid and sees things negatively, but she would take tiny comments that he makes, and like he could be sarcastically saying, "Oh, I must be an amazing teacher," like. She will take that seriously. Well, not seriously. She'll take that as that is what he's thinking, as opposed to it being, like you said, just in keeping with his character, that he would just make light of it. When actually it's something that he's really astonished by. But he has expressed that. He has raved over her. But she doesn't accept that. It doesn't seem like she does. She's just like, oh, he keeps saying it. Yeah. The one thing?
The one thing I wanted to point out is I understand wanting Vin to do this and telling Vin that she's going to do this and her willingness to do it. But if they are this concerned and we're already 2 months in, why have they not already at least put forward a couple of other names? Because we know when they lost Trap, they had considered clubs. So we know that there are they know that there are other groups out there. And it's sort of like what I was saying is Vin can't be the only potential spy that they could use. And I understand that the master apprentice plot here in many ways should be Kelsier and Vin, and that is the plot we want. It's just curious to me that they haven't already had a backup in mind.
They do okay, so they don't have an actual backup, like a person that they are thinking about, but they know that is an option, that is something that's coming, that could come, that if it messes up, they are going to try with her. So the only justification I can think of for them really pushing the Vin thing is that she's Mistborn. She's useful.
Fair.
Because she's Mistborn. Yeah, they could have a misting or something like that, but I think they've really emphasized the value of a Mistborn, even if people don't know that person is a Mistborn, because everyone's kind of secretive about it. Having your spy be an Allomancer is quite a thing. So that's the value I think. That's the justification I put onto it.
Fair. And I'm not suggesting that they just skip Vin and find a replacement. I'm just curious why they haven't already considered backups, just to have in the back of their mind, or to bring in another apprentice who could fill that role, but is like, I don't really want to, but I'll offer my guidance. I don't know.
You would just have the backup ready. They just talk about having
someone
alternative.
waiting in the wings.
They mention here in a few paragraphs or a few sentences.
Yes.
Yeah, we can have a replacement, but they don't have that ready, and that's a bit worrying.
Yes. And we're about to get into the section that has me wanting to ask you something, Kitty. If I might make a suggestion. Of course, Saz. Send the child with some of the missing crew members. I hear that the man Breeze is a very accomplished Suzer, and surely the others are equally skilled. Let them show Mistress Fiend how to use her abilities. And at this point, I really like Sazed, because I was thinking this. I was thinking, is the Master Apprentice plot going to be each of them? Are we going to get one-on-one lessons from each of them? Yeah. That would be so cool. I want to see that so badly. And then Kelsier is about to explain why he doesn't think that's a good idea. But what I was confused about was I don't really understand why he doesn't think it's a good idea. And that's what I want to ask you, Kitty. So let's read through it, and then we'll get into that. Kelsier paused thoughtfully. That's a good idea, Saz. But Kelsier glanced back toward the door, beyond which Vin was still petulantly getting her hair cut. I'm not sure. Today when we were training, we got into a steel push shoving match. The kid has to weigh less than half what I do, but she gave me a decent pummeling anyway. Different people have different strengths in allomancy. Yes, but the variance isn't usually this great. Plus, it took me months and months to learn how to manipulate my pushes and pulls. It's not as easy as it sounds. Even something as simple as pushing yourself up onto a rooftop requires an understanding of weight, balance, and trajectory. But Vin, she seems to know all these things instinctively. True, she can only use the first 4 medals with any skill, but the progress she's made is amazing. She is a special girl. She deserves more time to learn about her powers. I feel a little guilty about pulling her into our plans. She'll probably end up at a ministry execution ceremony with the rest of us. But that guilt won't stop you from using her to spy on the aristocracy. No, it won't. We'll need every advantage we can get. Just watch over her, Saz. From now on, you'll act as Vin's steward and guardian at the functions she attends. It won't be odd for her to bring a Terraceman servant with her. Not at all. In fact, it would be strange to send a girl her age to courtly functions without an escort. Protect her, Saz. She might be a powerful allomancer, but she's inexperienced. I'll feel a lot less guilty about sending her into those aristocratic dens if I know you're with her. Well, okay, I'll just finish up the chapter because there's 2 more paragraphs.
Yeah.
But then I want to get back to the question I'd asked you.
Okay.
I will protect her with my life, Master Kelsier. I promise you this. Kelsier smiled, resting a thankful hand on Sazed's shoulder. I feel pity for the man who gets in your way. Sazed bowed his head humbly. He looked innocuous, but Kelsier knew the strength that Sazed hid. Few men, allomancers or not, would fare well in a fight with a keeper whose anger had been aroused. That was probably why the ministry had hunted the sect virtually to extinction. All right, get back to your teaching. Lord Venture is throwing a ball at the end of the week, and ready or not, Vin is going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so much there.
Mm-hmm.
When he said that he was concerned about sending her off to Breeze and Ham and clubs for training, he said it's because she got into a pushing match with him and she shouldn't have because he's so much bigger than her, and yet she's so darn powerful, for lack of a better word. So I'm just a little bit confused. Is it because she tried to do was it because she was brash in her decision to do the pushing match at all, or is it because she is too powerful?
I think it is a too powerful thing. It's the unknown. Maybe he doesn't know the unpredictability. He was surprised even in the actual fight.
Like, does he think that Breeze wouldn't be able to handle her, or?
I don't think it's that. I think it's just the unpredictability of it, and he doesn't know what he trusts himself rather with her than other people, maybe. And maybe his curiosity, he wants to find out her limits. He wants to figure it out, what she's like. Maybe she's something scary to him, and he wants to know about it. Like the fact is, when she pushed him with all her strength, right? There was a pause. He actually was surprised, and then he also played it off to her as if this was nothing. Like he said, "Hey, don't get into a pushing match with someone twice your size, whatever." And he
was very nonchalant about it.
He was nonchalant, but that was something he was actually really worried about. She could land up hurting herself. There's unknowns here.
And I suppose she's not very good at following the rules. So if he told her, hey, when you're with Breeze, only use this metal. And, she wouldn't, because that's not who Vin is.
Yeah, and it's not that he doesn't, I don't feel, okay, I did say that, he only trusts himself. It's not that. It's that he doesn't want to expose everybody to these unknowns that he doesn't know about. And remember, he didn't say, hey, Vin, wow, that was amazing. You shouldn't have been able to do that. He didn't say that. He was just like, yeah, cool, it's fine. Here's your souvenir. But he's kind of in awe about that. He's like, no, she's flippin' powerful. And he's wondering about it. He's unsure about it. He doesn't know she's a wild card.
What to do with such raw talent.
Yes, he doesn't know what to do with it. And he doesn't know how others would handle it. Maybe he knows something more. Maybe there is more. But yeah, the fact that he tried to make her, he's like, no, you should avoid getting into matches with people that are bigger than you. That he's trying to teach her as a normal Allomancer would teach her, but she's got different variants and there's something different about her. I think that's a good enough reason. But I don't think that he's not going to allow her to be trained by them. I think he's just...
I really hope he does. I so badly want to see her in one-on-one sessions with the others.
Yes, I feel like that's going to happen anyway. I just feel he's just apprehensive about it. He's like, oh, I wish I had time. So the time constraint is going to... what do you call it? It's going to make him reconsider this. It doesn't mean that he's not going to be apprehensive anymore. Also, I feel like he's so regretful. He's feeling very guilty. So even he's feeling guilty that he would have to ask other people to train her because he wishes he could train her. He wishes he could spend that time and he's curious about her as well. So it's also regretful. It's regret for him that he's not the one that's going to be training her. It feels like he's saying goodbye. It's quite, yeah.
Yeah, there's something a little melancholic going on there. But it really speaks to just how much he seems to care about her. We know that Kelsier is someone who cares very deeply despite his nonchalant attitude. And we're seeing it in action here. I think it's very sweet that he asks Sazed to look over her and care for her. And there's something so very fatherly about the interaction, and Sazed very much has that quality of like that safety blanket quality about him, I think.
Speaking of which, he says, "I pity the man who stands in between or stands in your way," or something like that. Like, it makes me think, wait, what does Sazed, does he have some other skills that we are?
Karate master!
Yeah, what are we going to learn? Because there's, okay, first of all, here, he can memorize hundreds of religions. So there's something about that. But also, yeah, I feel like there's more to him. So maybe he's just highly trained in assassinousness, or he's got some other magical powers. I'm excited to see that.
Me too.
I do feel like he could protect Vin, in a certain way. And Kelsey did say, Alamancer or not, that could just be that, okay, there's a human, it doesn't matter, he doesn't have special powers, but he's still some sort of formidable foe. I'm excited to have that protecting Vin.
Same.
And we will get into it in chapter. It made me very excited for chapter 10, because I was like, oh, are we going to a ball now?
Yes, we're finally going to get to see some intrigue.
Yes. What can you tell us about what are we going to do with chapter 10?
Yes. Anyway, this was a relatively short chapter, I think.
Yeah.
Is there anything else important to bring up before we part ways?
Not at the moment.
All right, then. Good chapter, good start to part 2 of the book. And at the time of recording, we're about to get into the holidays. So we're going to try and get an extra recording in this week. And I'm just going to say, if you've made it this far into the video, we have something unique and kind of cool planned for next chapter that I'm excited for. Chapter for all of you to see or hear, as is the case. If you haven't subscribed to ThatDarnKitteh yet, go ahead and do so. She has wonderful panel shows on Thursdays where I make jokes, and she bounces between Tuesdays and Wednesdays doing either gaming streams or diagram streams where she diagrams debates and things.
And if you have not subscribed to the No One Asked You podcast, why have you not? You don't need to explain. You just need to subscribe. And you need to like this video right now if you have not already.
Thank you very much if you do. It is tremendously appreciated. All right. Have a good one, everyone. Happy holidays. Bye.
Bye.